Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with Wario or from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. The date was March 1980. The location, Los Angeles International Airport. Cheryl was preparing to board her flight when she noticed a man holding a yellow briefcase sitting alone on a nearby bench. Cheryl continued to watch him as she waited for her flight to be called. She found it odd that he kept opening and closing the briefcase without taking anything out. When she finally boarded the plane and took her seat, she couldn't help but steal another glance at the man. That's when she noticed something shocking. The man from the bench was now standing directly behind her, and he was smiling. Cheryl turned around and told the man to stop following her. He replied that he wasn't, insisting that he'd merely caught the same flight as her. Still suspicious, Cheryl decided to change seats so she could keep an eye on the man. However, she soon realized that no matter where she went, the man seemed to be everywhere. He was on the same row of seats as her, sitting in front of her, and even standing next to her in line to use the airplane bathroom. From that point on, the man never left her side. Every time Cheryl tried to shake him, he would claim that he was simply being friendly. At first, she tried to ignore him, but his constant presence quickly became more disturbing than creepy. On a whim, Cheryl asked the flight attendant if she had seen a man acting strangely and if he had caused any trouble. To her surprise, the attendant confirmed that she had spoken to the man earlier because he'd tried to pay for 2 tickets with only 1 seat. Despite Cheryl's discomfort, the flight attendant refused to let the man sit elsewhere, saying that he was welcome to sit wherever he liked, since there were plenty of empty seats. Once the plane landed, Cheryl hurried to get as far away from the man as possible. Even then, he approached her and offered to carry her luggage. She politely declined his offer and continued to walk away. Moments later, Cheryl turned around to find the man standing right behind her once again. This time, she lost her cool and screamed at him. People gathered around to watch the commotion, and Cheryl demanded that the man explain why he had been following her. With tears streaming down her face, the man apologized, explaining that he had become fixated on Cheryl from the moment he first saw her at the airport. He admitted that he had planned to tell her how beautiful she looked, but that his courage had failed him. After hearing his explanation, Cheryl felt a wave of sympathy wash over her. She realized that while his behavior had been unsettling, his intentions hadn't been malicious. Relieved to know that there was no real danger, Cheryl calmed down and thanked the man for his honesty. They parted ways at the baggage claim, and Cheryl went on her way, shaken but unharmed by the experience. My brother and I were hanging out in my room. We were talking about how weird déjà vu is and how it always seems to happen at the worst times. He agreed. Just then, we both heard a loud crash from downstairs. My mom had dropped a pan in the kitchen. It was the same sound we'd heard countless times before. My brother looked at me and said, "Oh great, here we go again." I asked what he meant. He explained that he'd been experiencing déjà vu moments for weeks. Moments that always happened at the worst possible times. It started with small things like déjà vu. When he picked up the phone to make a call, and the caller ID said the person he was about to call. Or when he got a text message from someone he was thinking about. But then the events started happening, events that were hard to ignore. One morning, he was driving to work when he saw a truck up ahead that reminded him of one he'd seen in a dream the night before. The truck's color, logo, and even the dents on the driver's side were identical. My brother knew what would happen next. He was right. A few seconds later, the truck collided with the car in front of it, causing a chain reaction that ended with my brother rear-ending a minivan. My brother got out of his car to check on the others involved. In the commotion, he noticed that the driver of the truck he'd seen in his dream was missing. My brother drove home. He thought it was just a coincidence. But then it happened again. He was having dinner with a friend when their conversation was interrupted by a loud bang coming from upstairs. They both looked at each other. What was that? His friend shrugged. probably just a pipe. Then they both heard it again, followed by the sound of shattering glass. They raced upstairs to find the source. Of course, they found nothing. That happened again, and they were forced to leave the house. It was only then that my brother realized what was happening. He had déjà vu of everything, good, bad, and ugly. He was reliving his life, but not as an observer. He was a participant. It was like he was playing a video game on repeat, knowing what was coming, but unable to change the outcome. And the worst part was, he didn't know when the glitches would happen. He was living on borrowed time. One day, he might get a second chance, but on bad days, he knew his fate. Like the time he saw the truck, he couldn't warn the others involved, or the day he and his wife argued and he knew the fight would end in divorce, even though he tried to save it. What did it mean? Was he truly reliving his life, doomed to live it out in its entirety? Or was it all in his head, déjà vu? Do you ever experience déjà vu? If so, what do you think it means? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe. We are our own worst enemies, but sometimes we can also be our own heroes, which is a problem. Consider what happens when your future self tries to save your past. Say someone is about to step out into the street when their phone rings and they decide to wait until the other side. They look left and right, there's no traffic, and they step out. Then suddenly, bam, a truck rounds the corner and honks its horn. The pedestrian jumps back. If you think that was a close call, try imagining it from the perspective of their future selves, who watch as their past selves narrowly avoid certain death. The universe itself seems to conspire to make sure certain people don't die, whether by putting them in a state of constant good health or by protecting them with uncanny coincidences. But when the reverse happens and future selves try to prevent their past selves from living, well, that presents a whole different set of problems. When the timeline gets rewritten, so do you, and not always for the better. Sometimes it means gaining abilities you never had before, taking on impossible tasks, or losing everyone you love, all for the sake of averting a single death. And even if you succeed, you change the world enough to where you may not want to be alive anyway. Hello, mortals. Today, we're talking about a fascinating phenomenon called forward-flowing déjà vu, where you have a premonition of something that hasn't happened yet, but you remember it already having happened. This is usually triggered by some sort of extreme danger, like a car accident or a sudden illness. In these cases, it might seem like your intuition is kicking in, but it's more like a survival mechanism. Your brain is subconsciously detecting a threat and preparing you to deal with it. It's almost like having a sixth sense for danger. And while it might seem scary to get a glimpse into your own possible future, it could be life-saving, literally. But here's the weird part. Forward flow déjà vu is closely linked to near-death experiences, which means that it might not be a coincidence that you remember dying. So let's ask a big question. What if you never actually died? What if you were yanked out of that timeline at the last second and sent back to the one you came from? In theory, this is actually a real possibility. Some scientists speculate that we exist in a quantum foam, a reality made up of countless alternate universes that are constantly branching off from each other. When we experience déjà vu, it's like a ripple in this quantum foam, a reminder that there are infinite versions of ourselves out there living countless different lives. So maybe when we have déjà vu, we're actually getting a glimpse of one of these parallel selves, a snippet of their memory or emotion that echoes across the multiverse. Maybe it's like a psychic hotline from our alternate selves, a way for us to peek into the endless possibilities of our existence. But what if it's more than just a glimpse? What if we're actually reliving these alternate realities? What if our déjà vu moments are actually glimpses of our own deaths? Moments when our consciousness slips through the cracks of the quantum foam and takes a peek at the timelines we nearly became a part of. It's like a terrifying game of cosmic déjà vu. You relive the moments leading up to your death over and over again. reliving the lives you could have lived if only you had made different choices. These alternate realities exist just beyond our perception, a constant hum of possibilities that surrounds us. And sometimes, just sometimes, we catch a glimpse of them through the phenomenon of déjà vu. If you enjoyed this episode, check out one of our others about multiverses or near-death experiences. And if you liked it, please share with a friend. My name is Ryan. This happened 3 years ago when I was 17 and my brother Chris was 19. We live in a small town surrounded by woods. Not much happens here, so kids like us get bored pretty easily. There's a trail near our house that leads into the forest. It goes on for miles. People say there are old buildings and weird stuff hidden deep in the trees. And we always talked about going to explore it, but never did until one weekend in October. We had nothing to do, and Chris said we should finally check out the house he heard about from other kids at school. It was a cool, cloudy day. The leaves were all changing colors, so it was a nice scenic walk. Actually, we packed water and flashlights, told our mom we were going hiking, and left around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun sets early in October, so we figured we had maybe 2 hours to go and get back. The walk started out normal. It's not like I hadn't hiked in these woods before, but after maybe 10 minutes, I started to feel weird. It felt like I had walked this specific trail before, like I remembered this specific walk and conversation with my brother. Even when we found a broken fence post on the trail, I felt like I remembered that exact moment. But I had never been down this trail before. I was sure of it. Chris was ahead of me, talking about something random, but I didn't really hear him at this point. I kept looking around, and everything felt too familiar. I knew there would be a thick tree with a big hole in it near the side of the trail, and 5 minutes later, we passed it. I didn't say anything out loud, like I've experienced déjà vu before. This time, it just felt weirdly more intense. The deeper we went, the more memories came back. I started to remember a house, a 2-story house with green paint peeling off and a broken front step. I saw it clearly in my head. I remembered a broken window on the top floor and dead vines going up the side. But I had never seen this house before in real life. I didn't say anything to my brother yet, though. We finally reached the house between 3:30 and 4:00 p.m., and when I saw it, I felt like my stomach dropped. It was the same exact house I was picturing in my head, down to just about every last detail. I just stared at it while Chris kept walking toward the porch. I wanted to turn around and leave. In that moment, I actually started questioning if I had seen this house before, even though I was almost positive I hadn't. I asked Chris if it felt familiar to him, and he acted confused and said no. Then he asked what I meant. I told him straight up I felt a weird sense of déjà vu of this exact moment. I didn't want to chicken out though, so we kept going. The front door was cracked open, indicating we weren't the first to have the genius idea of exploring this place. Chris pushed it open slowly, and it made a long squeaking sound as it opened. Inside, it smelled like what you'd expect a long abandoned house to smell like. And the silence in there was almost deafening, like it felt heavy on my ears. We stepped inside and there was broken furniture, old wallpaper peeling off, and a staircase going up on the left side of the room. We looked around the first floor for a while. There was a kitchen with no lights, a living room with a fireplace, and a hallway with one closed door at the end. The whole time, it felt like someone was watching us. At least to me, it did. Chris made a comment that the place is kind of creepy, and I couldn't agree more. Then I said something without thinking. I said, "I remember being here before." Chris stopped walking and just turned to me and said, "What do you mean?" I didn't even mean to say it. The words just came out on their own. I repeated myself. I said, "I remember this place, the kitchen, that hallway, even the fireplace. And I remember a woman upstairs." Chris's response was one you'd expect. An automatic assumption that I was trying to add to the creepy atmosphere and freak him out. I told him straight up, "I'm not trying to scare you. I just have a weird memory of being here and someone being upstairs." I could tell it did creep him out a bit, but I mean, in a setting like this, it isn't hard to freak people out. We stood there for a second. Then we heard a noise, a soft creak, like a floorboard being stepped on. They came from upstairs. Chris looked at me and I looked at him. We didn't say anything for a few seconds. He dared me to go up and check it out. I said, absolutely not, and advised we get out of there. He somehow convinced me to play rock, paper, scissors to see who would go up there and check it out. I lost, but I still refused to go up there. Chris still would rather go up there than to leave the house right then. As he walked up the stairs, each step creaked. I followed behind, but I stayed at the top of the stairs, while he walked toward the room where the noise had seemingly come from. It was the last room on the right. The door was slightly open. He reached out and pushed it open more. I couldn't see what was inside from where I was standing, but Chris saw something in there. He froze, and then out of nowhere, he screamed and almost shoved me down the stairs. He yelled, "Run!" And we flew down the stairs and out the front door. We didn't stop running, not even when we reached the trail again. We kept going until we were completely out of breath. When we finally stopped, we were bent over trying to breathe. My heart was beating so bad I could barely hear. "What did you see?" I asked. Chris looked at me and said, "There was a woman in there, staring out the window like a statue." When I asked him what she looked like, he said all he really noticed was her hair, which was shoulder length and grayish blonde. He kept asking me how the hell I knew there would be a woman up there. I accused him of lying to prank me, that he probably thought I was trying to scare him, so he flipped the script on me, but he never caved. He never told me he was kidding. He insisted for days, weeks, months, even years later today that he wasn't kidding, and he saw that woman in there. Part of me knows there's a possibility he did flip what he thought was a prank back on me, but deep down, I believe him. We both heard that sound from upstairs. It came from someone or something alive. My déjà vu or premonitions, or whatever you want to call it, were also way too specific to be coincidental. I'm glad I wasn't the only one to look into that room. This experience changed my definition of the term déjà vu. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your story. If you like this story, please hit the like button. And if you love this channel, then consider subscribing. I only publish creepypastas, and if that's all you're looking for, you can find it here. Thanks for watching. Before I worked in IT, I spent 2 years doing overnight shifts at a long-term care home in upstate New York. The place was old, a little run down, but decent enough. The patients were mostly stable, just elderly and needing care. A few residents had Alzheimer's or advanced dementia, but most were okay. One was an 87-year-old woman named Miss Adelaide. She was mostly lucid, very sweet, and kept to herself. For the first few months, I followed my usual routine: midnight rounds, patient checks every hour. Most nights were uneventful, but every so often I'd find Miss Adelaide awake, staring at the ceiling, humming some slow, eerie tune. I never thought much of it. Hey, people get lonely at night. Sometimes I'd talk to her and she'd respond, but other times she'd just stare at me blankly, eyes unfocused. One night around 2:15 a.m., I found her sitting up in bed. She was pale and her eyes were wide open. I asked if she needed anything and she responded without blinking. "You already asked me that. You ask every night, but tonight is different." I felt this strange feeling in my gut, like she was reading a script for my future. I laughed nervously and offered her water. She declined and added, "You should remember this part. Come back in 5 minutes and check my vitals again. You always do." I obliged, and sure enough, 5 minutes later, I was back with the nurse's aide, taking her vitals. We exchanged uneasy glances. I don't know why, but I took special notice of the clock that read 2:22. The next night around the same time, I went in to find her sitting up again. She was smiling faintly and said, "You came back. I knew you would. You're always here at 2:22, aren't you?" Startled, I confirmed the time. It was 2:22. We hadn't talked yet, but she already knew the time, and she was smiling, as if expecting my arrival. I asked if she needed anything, but she just shook her head slowly and continued staring at the ceiling. The next night, she was gone. Passed in her sleep around 1:50 a.m. When I went to her room for rounds, the bed was freshly made and her belongings were already boxed up, as if the hospital staff knew she wouldn't be staying there tonight. I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. I don't know what was happening with Miss Adelaide. I don't really believe in the paranormal, but it seemed to me that maybe she was in some kind of loop or glitch, like a program repeating the same lines over and over. I couldn't let it go, so I dug through old records and archived patient notes. It turns out another night shift staff member had written about Miss Adelaide in 2013. Her words exactly. Not just the phrases, but the exact dates and times. Which was impossible because the clock in the nurse's station was notoriously inaccurate and had long since stopped working. According to the dated entries, Miss Adelaide had started talking to the night staff, quoting them and accurately predicting their actions. On one entry from February, she wrote, "I remember this version. You take your break at 3:07. You always do." And according to the note, the nurse just looked at their watch. It was 3007. After finding this, I don't know what I expected. The staff at that care home had heard those same stories years before. At that point, it wasn't a mystery anymore. I was just curious. What happened? Was she a ghost? Was she a time traveler? Did she have some kind of precognitive ability? Or was she simply a lucid, somewhat creepy old lady who liked to mess with the night staff? I don't know, but the mystery still keeps me up at night sometimes. Now I work behind a desk. I don't deal with patients anymore. But every so often I get the same feeling, the déjà vu, like something is going to happen again and I'll be powerless to stop it. When that happens, I stop and listen because maybe it's not just a trick of the brain. Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's Miss Adelaide or someone like her reaching out across timelines trying to tell me, hey, you've been here before. It didn't end well last time. Try a different path. Since that experience, I've met people who worked at that same care home, both 10 and 20 years apart, and none of them remembered the incident. I've never mentioned it to them. But without me saying anything, they brought up how they used to get weird dreams at night. Dreams about patients who weren't there anymore or about things that hadn't happened yet. One even told me how a patient warned her she'd be fired soon and then she was let go a week later due to downsizing. She didn't remember the patient's name and I just nodded and said how interesting that was. I think about Miss Adelaide all the time. Sometimes when I'm falling asleep, I hear that same eerie humming from my dreams. I can't help but still think about her. Maybe it's just a story that sticks with you. Maybe it's more than that.